this is a really exciting event, and thank you all very much for making the time to come here. My name is Guy Spiegelman. I am the lead for startups that are healthcare and life science startups across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Amazon Web Services. That's my role. I'm based in Amsterdam, but I lived for the last 20 years until a few months ago in Tel Aviv, where I worked in startups and in VC, all in healthcare and life sciences. And today my job is to really guide this day of what we're calling a startup matchmaking lounge. But before I do that, Marianne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Marianne Larsen, and together with some others I would like to rise, we run HealthTech Nordic. Please, rise. These are the HealthTech Nordic guys. So, all of us together with 200 and more startups, or companies I would say, because we define startups differently. We are actually one of the leading nodes in the world for health tech. Not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of quality and the proven impact from clinical studies over the years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They have proven to reduce the need of healthcare for chronically diseased people by 50%. And results like that, life quality, better work conditions for professions, etc., etc., etc. But this hasn't taken off yet in the world. We're still early adopters in the healthcare system, different levels of healthcare systems, and different traditional industries like AstraZeneca and others. We come from different traditions. Together today, we meet to build bridges, and we need to do that. We need to do things together. You usually say that as well. Yeah. Big providers, small providers, different levels of care, investors, public payers, other payers, insurance companies, etc. All come from different traditions, but we're changing everything about healthcare together.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on that.
Yeah.
And I think the one job that everyone here has to do in this room, we have one job to get done. One job. And that's, like Marianne was saying, it doesn't matter if you're a payer, provider, a clinician, an investor, an innovator. Our job is to shorten the time to clinical value. That's it. Because if we can develop a drug in 5 years instead of 10 years, like it takes today, Anders will tell you that, that's 5 years of people who will be diagnosed with a condition that will have a treatment option. As opposed to, if it still takes 10 years, 5 years where they don't have a potential treatment. Now let's say we're talking about orphan or rare diseases. If it's your child, you don't care that it's a rare disease. You just don't care. You want a solution. And technology today, be it cloud, high-performance computing, Gen AI, machine learning, has the power to make that process cheaper, faster, better, more precise, so that we can offer more hope to more people. And that's all that everyone in this room is doing, whether it be on the developing the therapeutic side, or whether it be making clinical care more accessible and more equitable, so we can reach more people.
Brilliant. So let's do this together,
yeah,
right?
We're going to do it together.
Yeah.
So let me explain how the day's going to work. I've been on the, so we're doing the welcome, we're starting good with time, which is great. We're going to have a panel here for some of our VC and industry experts about what they're seeing in the industry now, and the future of healthcare. There's a lot of change happening very rapidly. We've picked 8 startups, and please don't be offended if you weren't picked. We had to pick 8, because we wanted to make sure that we had enough time. It's going to be pretty quick startup, pretty quick pitches, 3 minutes pitches, and then we'll have an investor panel giving feedback. Okay, so and it's really good to learn from that feedback, even if you're not on stage. Okay, and then the really exciting part of the afternoon, and we use very high-tech methodology to arrange a sort of speed dating session. As you can see there, you all wrote your names on the whiteboard. We run this actually across Europe in different. We run an event called the Digital Health Cocktail Hour in different cities across Europe. And I was speaking today that we might think about doing one over here as well. But it's very simple the way it works. You go to your table. Each table has a number. So you see behind you 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. At the time and we'll be on the time very, very specifically. You have 10-minute meetings, go to the number that you signed up for. When you are not meeting, there will be food and refreshments and other people to mingle with and network. And then if there's still like willingness to, if you haven't managed to meet somebody you want to meet, we'll keep it open a bit longer so that you get to meet those people. Does anyone have any questions? No? We're all good? So just in terms of who is in the room today, you should have got this in the briefing sort of doc that we sent out. We have about 28 or 29 startups in the room. Put your hand up if you're a startup. Yes. Fantastic. Okay, and we have about 9 or 10 investors. Who are the investors in the room? Okay, they seem to want to sit on this side. Fine. All good. We have some people from industry. I'm from industry. Not that many. Should do some more of that next time, but that's fine. And like we said before, it's about making meaningful connections. So that, you know, let's make clinical impact, and let's commit to doing that for the greater good. Right, we're ahead of time, but that's okay. It means the panel gets another 5 minutes. So I'd like to call on Christopher Meyer. Chris, where are you? Everyone say hi to Chris. And I'll ask Chris to introduce the panel.
Okay. A shift in mic. Wonderful. There's so many microphones to choose from. I'm safe with this one. So great to see everyone here. We're super thrilled that you're here and prioritized in the right order. This is the last event of the exhibition Vitalis, but probably the most important one. We're also thrilled to welcome all the investors who put up time to join us here, and in no special order, Foreus Startup and Growth. We have Johanna somewhere. Where's Johanna? There you are, great. Butterfly Ventures. There you are, sorry. Bonnier Capital, actually there are 2 of you, which is fantastic. HealthTech, Jakob, so there. Luminar Ventures, Magnus. Industrifonden, Iliam is somewhere or on his way. 7 District, Niklas is also on his way. Then we have Innovestor, Marco. Warm welcome from Finland. And Hadian Ventures. So I would like to bring up on stage Anders Persson, who is, there you are. Please, welcome. Take a seat. You have the microphone, so we can leave the other one around. Magnus, Jakob, and Toby, please take a place on stage. And as Guy and Marianne already told you, this, I mean, we know why we're here. Well, this is the most vibrant and exciting expanding economies with the economic sectors right now. We have a lot of healthcare organizations who are utilizing cutting-edge technologies, but clearly we need to have more investments into the sector to drive this change. We're generating a wave of excitement among the investors, such as yourself, the industry partners that help promote that. So we have gathered some industry stakeholders. Anders, you will introduce yourself, each and every one. And you can enjoy this tailwind factor. I think we all feel that this is, we can take this event as an indication for that. So before I ask you some questions, would you please make a short introduction of who you are and what you represent for the investors and your colleagues to know more about you. Anders, would you please go first?
Yeah, happy to. Hi everyone, Anders Persson, coming from AstraZeneca. I have a long background in clinical drug development, and Guy, we have done taking it right from first time in man to commercial launch in oncology space in 28 months. It can be done. I'm more than happy to share about talk about how we actually do it. Today my job is when I'm overseeing what we call our ecosystem work and leading our ecosystem strategy work, which is really about engaging across industries, with academia, with healthcare system, and focusing on the capabilities we need for tomorrow to sort out the healthcare challenges and create that clinical impact ASAP.
Great. Magnus?
Yes, I'm Magnus Bergman from Luminar Ventures. We're early stage VC, and we invest in digitization. So obviously the healthcare sector is a very important and large sector. We have 3 investments there, like Mindler and Health Integrator, Board and .se and so on. We're actively looking into new projects. Where we focus is the companies that can scale and that we can help scale rapidly through digital channels. Obviously Mindler did that, and that's also where we can help out. I guess we will talk more about that. Myself, I'm a former entrepreneur. I started a consulting company, became part of ICO Media Lab, and then Business Angel. I was the first investor into Truecaller. And the rest of the team, they have like background from Klarna and ISET and such. So we really try to bring that sort of competence into the healthcare sector, because it's all about making technology available, right? It's, some people say the future is here, but it's not equally spread out. It's in small islands, and it's for everyone, right?
Jakob?
Jacob Regberg from HealthTech. So we are a dedicated life science venture capital fund. It was actually the first in Sweden. Started more than 25 years ago, and we've invested in 126 companies so far. Our main focus today is in therapeutics, but we do some medical devices and digital therapies as well. And coming from kind of the medical molecular side, we really like clinical validation and proven things that are actually scientifically proven to have an effect. Very science driven. Most of the team are PhDs. I myself have a PhD in chemistry from Stockholm University and a background in pharma and research. And yeah, we're really excited about the future of technology and medicine and the intersection between the fields.
Great. I'm Tove Din from Hadian Ventures. We're also a life sciences VC fund based in Oslo, Norway, but with a footprint across Europe. We invest broadly across all fields of life sciences, including digital health. And myself, I'm a medical doctor, physician by training, and brain scientist. Yeah, it's going to be great to get to know you all. So thanks for inviting us here.
Thanks. So Anders, I'll start with you. In your view, what are the key challenges, that barriers that health tech companies face when trying to bring their innovations to the market? And how could you help address these challenges in your role?
Making connections, because it's healthcare systems around the globe are really fragmented, and they are really complex to navigate. I think I've seen too many cases where people have a great idea and come with the idea, and then people try to figure out how do you plug it in. I think it's to start the other way around, really understanding what is the problem and dilemma I, as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, and as an innovator, is trying to solve. Because that will help when you're trying to get it into the system. And that then in the global context, but then you need to understand where do you start, which market do you go for, and don't think that you need to have all the answers from the get-go, but really understanding also that there is a lot of stuff that you don't even know that you don't know. Then also think a barrier, if we look back on the Sweden, and we'll play this back to you guys who's sitting on the cash here, is that I think we get too little money into the system. I think we are really good in Sweden to start projects, and we give them a piece of money to get going and then showing something, then there is more to come. I think it would be really better to give people, you have this pile of cash and you have 2 years to sort it out, to get going on it. And then it either fly or it die. Don't run it on a shoestring.
Toby, given Hadian's position, how would you envision that health tech is making a difference, in society, particularly when it comes to improving healthcare outcomes and accessibility?
Yeah, I'm glad to answer that. It's a great question. Health tech can enable, more meaningful interactions between patients and healthcare providers. Technology can also help us differentiate or delineate between the tasks that humans can do really well versus tasks that can be automated and more efficiently done by machines. So it's primarily that, and I think also that health tech is essential in addressing many challenges that we face in healthcare today. With scientific progress, the treatment has become more complicated. Patients are living longer with more and more complicated diseases. Treatment guidelines, they change all the time. We can't just look up in medical textbooks that are edited once every decade anymore to help our patients. Patients are also searching online for information, and I think to have technology to integrate all of that information to help patients would greatly help discussions and engagement.
Jakob, question. What key trends in development, like in technology advancements, do you find most exciting, and how do you keep up with these trends?
Good question. I guess AI is the obvious thing now. Everybody's talking AI, and we're not keeping up. I mean, it's too early to say what will work and what won't. And we're actually curious about what Big Pharma is doing with AI. Because what we, from an investor perspective, see is just the small companies trying to push the technology. But we do know that there's things going on, even in the larger companies. And there's so much you could revolutionize with AI, ranging from how you design clinical trials and drugs to the actual patient management and collecting all this data we could source from wearables and new technologies and doing something with the data. Yeah.
Question for you, Magnus. How do you, when you enter into investment, how do you support the growth beyond the capital?
I mean, these companies need a lot of help if you want to scale and make like get millions of customers, and then that's if every customer costs you like quite a lot of money to get, that's where they really need support in and reaching a big market and to get the traction, because in the digital environment it's more like it's a little bit like winner takes it all. We can see that sort of phenomena. It's happening, I think, in many sectors sooner or later. And then obviously, I mean, that is a challenge. But then obviously, I mean, we're putting in money, but it's very true. you need a lot of money. So our first main objective, I think, is to find more money and do it quickly. And then we have close to 60% conversion from when we invest in seed round to get the really big next stage investments, and that's sort of the how we measure ourselves. So we try to be super, really find out that there is a way to plug into the system. That's super important, because otherwise it will never fly. And there are challenges in the healthcare environment to find a way to plug in. Could we do this out of pocket, or is there a way just that this is very easy to implement? But once you find that, you need a lot of help you need to raise a lot of money. I think like 1 billion SEK is a number that we're saying to entrepreneurs coming to us that, okay, do you realize you need to raise maybe 1 billion in the next 3 years? but you also need to find a way to have 1 billion SEK in revenues in your mind, how you're going to get to it at least in the next few years. And that's the kind of challenges that we work with. And it's super doable. And some of the companies, we're only 5 years, but some have done that already and are somewhere on the way.
So whoever's looking for money today will change their currency from SEK to USD.
Yeah.
That's how. Do you bring any additional expertise or
Yeah, it's expertise on raising money, but it's also, we're a small team, but bring in the knowledge from the ecosystem, so bring in those people from Spotify that scaled and bring in those talents that can do super good UX, because that's where the battle will be, user experience. We see that also out on the floor here, that its user experience is so different if you look on one company and it's like, oops, what is that? So that's 1980s. And if you look at another place, it's like feeling like efficient and modern. So, but bring in that kind of talent in. We have it in Sweden. So bringing talent is super important from us. Raising money, bringing talent, and obviously always being available to entrepreneurs, especially first-time founders. Giving a bit of advice on how to prioritize what's super important and not so important.
Anders, please.
Quick reply on the AI one you were curious about. I would say it's a hot topic, and I'm pretty sure that in 2 years, at least with our company, I think it goes across, we will all have our personal AI assistant helping us in our daily job. There are some obvious stuff happening already now, because I think all of us have tried ChatGPT, and it is pretty, we're all sitting there with a blank screen and trying to start writing something. Getting that first draft helps you to respond to, and then having spent more than 2 decades in clinical drug development, I know how many documents we are producing. And just the time you're saving on having, say, that automatic creation of a draft that you then can start tidying up instead. Plus also, so that will shorten timelines. That's just one case. Then it's actually applying it across the whole discovery and development value chain. There are use cases across, and those will radically change the journey, coming closer to what Guy talked about in the intro here. And then there are other applications in the data space as well, where we're already utilizing AI solutions to radically change, radically shorten process steps in clinical trials as well. So it's all happening while we speak. And then also about this, how we help, because I didn't answer that question. We are a company with global reach, and we are keen on contributing to the growth of the life science sector, and then really aim to improve health. And we have, if you look on the Nordics, we have agreements with close to 20 incubators in the Nordics, who then have, if they raise the questions, we have a long list of mentors who are very willing to bring their knowledge. So getting into even very highly specific technical questions, we have the experts who are very happy to share and give a response to that. So that mentoring, and because that doesn't cost us anything, but it has two positives. It helps the startups addressing some matters where it would be hard for them to get access to that capability otherwise. And also what's in it for us is that, well, we keep an eye on what's happening, but it's also good for those individuals who are mentors, because I can contribute. And recognition of us contributing, that feels good for the huge majority of us. And that's a positive win. And by the way, that network then, we have that running that out of Gothenburg in the Nordic setting, but that's a global network as well. Plus that we have incubated, we have a global network where we are connected into the local startup communities where we then can share knowledge across as well. It's just about asking.
Yeah. And I think everyone in the room knows about the regulatory risks, you know, in this kind of investments and in health tech startups. How do you evaluate the potential risk, and how do you work around that to mitigate the risk?
That's a very interesting question. I have a long answer. You'll get the short answer today in the interest of time. So obviously we need to look at the science, the clinical validation side of things. Have patient outcomes been measured properly? Is it randomized? Has the data been collected in an unbiased manner? Is it prospective, retrospective? And we also engage with field leading experts and regulatory organizations and with strategic partnerships, which are huge opportunities for us to assess these risks, and also co-investing with other VCs is also another strategy that we use. So,
Jakob, a question for you. In addition to the obviously sought after financial returns, what other forms of impact or value do you expect from your investments?
Financial returns are
Well,
the most
apart
important,
from
obviously.
financial, I mean, like the societal benefits, etc.
Yeah,
I mean, how much
of course.
do they weigh?
I mean, we're developing new drugs to save lives or improve lives. And that's, I think, a very strong driver for the whole team at HealthCap. Like, most of us have a medical background and are really driven by that. And then, of course, we could also see synergistic effects if we invest in, for example, a technology that might help our current portfolio companies, might actually dock in with the existing healthcare system in some way and improve things even more.
Magnus, can you give me some examples of innovations in HealthTech companies that have made a difference in directly through Luminar or elsewhere that you can?
Yeah, I mean, there is, for example, the one we have in HealthTech that has so far had the biggest impact is obviously Mindler, which is mental health. So they're saving lives every day. They're coming out with a couple of reports on their impact, but obviously we know this is like hugely, it's hugely under prioritized, and that's we can see when we went into it that an average clinician had like 1.8 patient visits per day. And we have 4 to 5x that, and then by using automations, it's even more. And I think with using AI, you can easily 10x that. And that's I mean, to say that to someone, we can 10x your job. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But I see that's going to happen, and that's going to impact a lot. We see that like. Also with younger adolescents and such that there's a huge need there as well. So that's one of the examples, but I'm sure using AI and preventive care, like Health Integrator, are focusing on scanning. You're being scanned, and then you see that you have a risk of diabetes, and then avoiding to get diabetes, but through the program, then they get paid, and that's so they have also super good results on that, and it's super. I think preventive care for us is something that we see impact on. That's on a small scale still because it's preventive care hasn't been super prioritized, but there's a very big opportunities there for society. Otherwise, it will be diabetes. It will be like hypertonic situations and a lot of expensive conditions and multi diagnoses that would be expensive to handle.
I think I'll ask the same question to you too. Is there any company you recognize who's gone from being a disruptor to actually be part of the ecosystem, making a difference, either in your portfolio or on your radar?
With regards to digital health or health?
Yeah, I would say.
So we have invested in Alex Therapeutics, which is a digital platform for addiction and smoking cessation, which is also along the lines of preventative healthcare. Very interesting technology, and we're also seeing some strategic pharma interest in that space. So that's one.
Jakob, anything you have on mind?
Well, we've been more a traditional medtech investor previously, so we have investments in simple implants and procedures. Bone support would be a good example. It's essentially a bone glue for fractures, and it also has an antibiotic eluting version, which is really improving the situation for patients. And that's just cool, kind of connecting pharma in one way, active treatment within this bone glue, and to improve outcomes.
Anders, is there anything has made an impact on you in terms of going from a startup and becoming part of bigger?
I have one which actually connects. It's an AI case. Still early days, but we have, several of you know about the BioVenture Hub that we have at AstraZeneca here in Gothenburg, where we are hosting scale-up companies. And one is an AI-based coming out of Oxford University, where you basically through radar technology can monitor your breathing pattern. And these guys, they are really smart. But it's simply a white box, because it's white, where you basically put it in your bedroom and it monitors your breathing pattern. You can then predict when an exacerbation, like with COPD and asthma, is occurring. We are then using that in clinical trials. That can have a dramatic impact if you can then avoid or see the sign of an exacerbation at a much earlier stage than it actually have occurred. So, and that's an AI-driven solution, smart math behind it, and has great potential. Still to be, it is, there are evidence that this is working, but scaling it will be a big one, of course, that has huge potential.
And Anders, how do you, given your position at one of the biggest, or you are the biggest, right, in the world right now, AstraZeneca is the biggest pharma, or?
Value-wise.
Value-wise. Yeah. So how do you?
Not revenue-wise.
Not revenue. Right. But how do you engage in the broader health ecosystem to foster this kind of collaboration between startups and the more established players?
So what we do is that we have our, as I mentioned very briefly before, we have a network. It's called the A-Catalyst Network, where we have innovation hubs in a little bit more than 20 places around the world. That gives us an opportunity to have a pulse of the local scale-up community, startup and scale-up communities in these locations. Something Guy is very deeply involved in, and we together with AWS and a couple of other companies we have in Israel, for instance, is something called Aeon Lab, where companies with AI solutions focusing on the should we say, the drug discovery development path are being, should we say, incubated and supported by a number of complementary industry partners in order to accelerate that innovation and help them grow. So that's just one example. We have the mentoring network as well, I meant. So we are working across the scale, and then on top of that, which we also do through the traditional business development, if there are great ideas, either products or and even more technology, then we either collaborate or we can acquire them as well. So I think this has been an evolution, I would say, over the last 10 years, but going from being a very close business to being much more outreaching, both into the world of startups, scale-ups, but also into the academia, finding the ideas very early on, where you then can accelerate the development of those.
And question for all of you, regarding timeline and roadmap, what are your expectations when it comes to timeline for achieving returns? I know it differs, but if we talk about health tech, what's the bottom line for time? How fast do you expect returns? Would you say 5 years, 10 years? Jakob?
I can start, yeah. So we're used to things taking time. Investing in molecules in preclinical stage, it takes for ages. Like, it's actually not a really good fit for the venture model where you have a 10-year fund cycle and you're supposed to do an exit within 10 years because it could take longer. But having said that, I think medtech could be a lot faster. You don't have all the stages of clinical trials to go through, and I think we would also, if we invest in a medtech company, go a little bit later. We would like to see a prototype or some kind of working device, or maybe even a little commercial traction before we invest, and then that would also make the timeline shorter. So, but 5 to 7 years would probably be reasonable.
Yeah.
But if it takes longer, we can stay longer. Like, we're there to support the company.
I was just going to say it's the same for us. You have some really important points, so we follow the same strategy within our fund.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we are under the fund model, but actually the 10-year model we can get like 2 years extension to our fund, but actually works quite good now because the pace of technology innovation and implementation accelerates. We saw that with ChatGPT, right? It came to 100 million in no time, like so. And if you look backwards, even for like recent innovations like Facebook and so on, it's just accelerating. So I think the fund model in that way actually works quite well now. in obviously not for the more advanced, some of the more advanced. We have to be a bit cautious when we look at deep tech and think about it a bit different. But otherwise, it's 7 years is a good. That's our average from investment to exit, and that might be that we don't need to go IPO or so we can sell the shares to someone else, but doesn't need to. We can just, but 7 years, I would say. I think it works pretty well.
Okay, that'll be the last word for this session. Thank you so much for bringing your thoughts to life, to the investors, to the startups. And Guy, you are there.